Hey there YouTube, it's Martin back with another video, and I was at the club junk sale the other day and I came back with one of these. It's a variac. What's a variac? It's like a dimmer switch that you would use to dim the lights in your house, but in this case it holds quite a bit more power. It's quite a substantial device, quite a lot of copper in here, and the idea you would use a variac for is if you've got an old piece of equipment like an old radio, something like that that's not been switched on for many years, rather than put the radio direct onto the mains and run the risk of blowing some of the components inside that have dried out, you can plug it in through this and just turn the power up gently, so hopefully reform the components just by increasing the voltage by about 10-15 volts at a time. So the only problem is this came in a box. It was actually in a box with 3 other variacs that the guy was using, I believe in a dark room, I might be wrong on that. But we didn't write down where any of these wires go. There is a little diagram on the side of how the transformer is wired, and hopefully I can make some sense of that. But rather than plugging this straight into the mains at 230 volt with what I think is the correct wiring, bear in mind that this whole thing is copper, it's all going to be energised and can output up to something like 270, 280 volts on there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wire it up on the test power supply in the workshop with something like 24 volts going into it. The point of that, even then, even if it is cranked up at full, the most I'm going to get out of it is something like 36, 40 volts. It's not going to kill me, it's not going to electrocute me, it might give you a tingle, but if I do inadvertently catch over with a high voltage, it's not going to be that much if I'm only putting a little amount into it. Once I've got all that wired, once I've got everything, my head around the wiring, then I can think about connecting it up to the mains and putting it in a box and things like that. So let's head out to the workshop and we'll see how we can wire it up. Right then, so we're in the workshop. I've got the variac connected up on the centre pin and on the negative to an 18 volt AC supply. I've got that wired up, just piggyback there, into this meter here. I've also got the output wired up here, believe it or not, to the pins of a plug of an inspection light. Something I didn't expect to happen. And I'll give you a demonstration here. I'll switch the power on. So that's the input voltage you're going at the moment, about 18 volts AC. Now as I turn this up, now obviously this is all energised at the moment. I'll move the soldering iron cable out of the way, and please excuse the messiness of my workbench. As I turn the power up, I don't know if I can do this without getting in the way of the camera. There we go, we're about 20 volts there. Keep going up, 30. And watch the inspection light here, which is in the corner of the shot. So we get up to about 50 volts. So the light is now coming on. 63, 69, 70. So this light, we're now pumping 109 volts we're getting out of an 18 volt AC wall wart transformer. That I did not expect, I'll be honest with you. And obviously if we were to put 230 volts in, I must have something wrong with the wiring here at the moment. If I was to put 230 volts into this, I'd expect to be getting a lot more, certainly in this configuration. It does say output 0 to 270 volts, so I don't quite know what's going on there. If I turn it up even more, if we go up to, we can actually get it up to 280, that's 200 volts going in there. So let's go up 233 volts. That's actually what comes out of the UK main supply, and as you can see, it's an LED light, but it's working. And the transformer here is going, it is buzzing quite a lot. You probably won't hear that on the video, but it is buzzing quite a lot. So that's something I did not expect. I'm tempted now to put this actually onto a something else with a bit more load and just to see what it does. Obviously we are running, this is our input cable, it is literally just speaker wire that we're using, and the power supply that I'm using, I will show you for the sake of the video, is just an OEM power supply. It's nothing out of the ordinary at all. It's an OEM adapter, 18 volts, 1 amp it will deliver. That's it. So interesting. I didn't expect it to do that. Right, stand by and we'll see if we can find something else we can hook it up to. Now, do you reckon it's going to power a standard tungsten incandescent light bulb? I don't know how many watts is on this. I'd like to say that's about 60 watts. I don't have a proper holder for it, so I'm just going to clamp that ever so gently in the corner of the vise, and just be careful with what I'm doing as I go along. You'll still be able to see the voltage as we crank it up on here. These are the two live contacts. I'm just going to touch them onto the bulb. So power on. If we turn it up, we get that up. Well, it's not showing on the video, is it? It's 30 volts. Let's turn it up. 109 volts. Is it going to do anything on 109 volts? Yes, it is. It's lighting the light up on 109 volts. You can't see that very clearly, can you? Let's see if we can do that the other way around. Hopefully so you can see it. It might blur out the video, so you don't try this at home. Oops. There we go, it's 109 volts we're running that on at the moment. It's dropped down to about 89, just while I'm putting some load on it. Let's turn that up to 230, like we had a moment ago. 227, close enough. There we go. And the variac is lighting it up. It's all running off an 18 volt power supply. That I did not expect, but it does show what you can do with these things. In fact, the wires are a little bit warm. Maybe I better not do that too often, but interesting. 18 volts in, 230 volts out. In fact, if we crank it all the way up, it actually goes up to 274 volts out. Now, obviously, that will drop a little bit as we put some kind of load on it, but yeah, that I did not expect. Well, I think I've probably got it wired a little bit more as it should be now. I'm going in on, what pins am I going in on at the moment? 1 and 4, coming out on 2 and 3, which I think is probably more how this variac was designed to be used, rather than going in with 18 and coming out with about 300 volts. I've got this wired directly up to the meter now. There's nothing else in between. So as we wind the power up, the input voltage is about 18 volts coming from the power adapter. So we get to there's your 18 volts, which is about 80% on the variac windings. If we now turn this up, we go up to 22. That's more what I was expecting it to do. So when I mentioned in the earlier part of the video, I was going to put in something like 24 volts and expecting no more than about 30 out. That's where I was going. That's where I thought we were heading for. I didn't expect to get 300 volts out of this thing, but it does prove if you wire these things up incorrectly, you can do yourself a lot of mischief if you're not overly careful. So all of this at the moment is completely energized. So even at 21 volts, I'm not going to try and touch that. Specifically as AC, of course, is a lot more dangerous than DC is. I quite happily touch 21 odd volts DC, but this, yeah, I'll pass. Thanks very much. I've had enough wallops. I'd rather not have any more. Well, there we are then, now hooked up to the mains, obviously being very, very careful because everything in here is actually all now live at mains voltages. The white cable is just coming off the main supply, and then we've got the two cables there going out to the multimeter there. If I turn the power up on the variac, you can watch the power rise. Nominal voltage in the UK is around 230, 240 volts. We're going quite happily up. So now we're approaching sort of 75–80%. That's 241 volts. So roughly what's coming out the UK main supply. As we wind it up even further, that's now at full whack, 275 volts. The output on this is quoted at 0 to 270 volts. So that's not bad. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, please do like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like what you saw, give us a thumbs down and put a comment in there as to why, and please don't just say it's shit. Give us some reason as to why and give us some feedback. Always welcome for that. Do check out my other projects as well at m0sgl.com, and also check out the ICQ podcast, www.icqpodcast.com, or online on your favourite podcast catchers.